So today I thought I'd talk a bit about my experiences in monastic life in terms of the 8 verses of thought transformation. These verses are very pertinent to my journey, and I'll do the first 4 today and then another BBC next time with the next 4. First, I just would say that a monastic community is a very powerful place to practice taming my mind. I initially thought it was the place that had the power, and the more I was here and the more I was practicing and learning, then it was clear to me that it was here and in everybody else. And then after some time, then as we started doing the Vinaya rites, Posada, Varsa, then it was so clear that great power came from those practices as well as what we brought, which was very surprising to me. I didn't expect that at all. It's a wonderful place. So let me start with the first verse. With the thought of attaining awakening for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. So for me, I met the Dharma when I was older. I had decades of worldly practice. So I was 48 when I found Vinova Children. And when I moved here, I was 57, so I was old. And so I had a whole lot of worldly habit energy built up. But the one thing that I was really clear about after being in worldly life for so long was there was nothing there that was going to make my life meaningful and bring contentment, because I tried everything and nothing did it. There was always this empty hole in the heart. So I am so grateful that I found Buddhism. Because that empty hole is gone. It's gone. So this is a good thing. So with this first verse, I certainly understood it intellectually, but of course, coming to the Abbey, I brought all my afflictions with me. And so mostly what I practiced was self-centeredness, because that's what I was conditioned to do out in the world, certainly. What was helpful was that I learned that self-centeredness was not a part of my mind. It was adventitious, so it could be removed. And due to the skill of Vinova Children, started learning ways to get some separation from that, so that I could start identifying when the self-centered attitude was playing out in my mind. And there was a big battle in there for, well, there still is, but it was really big at first. It did not want to listen to anything I said, because it knew if it did listen to what I was telling my mind, that it would get weak and at one point then disappear, which I'm looking forward to. And I also started to learn how to apply some antidotes. Then the second verse, whenever I am with others, I will practice seeing myself as the lowest of all, and from the very depths of my heart, I will respectfully hold others as supreme. So I did see myself as the lowest of all, but it was a very skewed view, because it was full of afflictions. So I felt like the worst of the worst, the less of the less. And I criticized myself a lot, felt like I was not doing as well as the others. So I was using comparing mind to identify kind of where I was. And of course, whenever we use the comparing mind, either, there they are down there or there they are up there, suffering, always the suffering mind. So I did that for quite a long time, and it was misery making, misery making. Um, but again, because of the teachings, after a while, I started to understand my mind better, and of course, the meditation too. And I started understanding that my mind was the problem and not the place or the community. But that is a very deep habit in my mind, and it's really easy to blame others because that's what we're conditioned to do. The problem is always out there. Um, but what helped me through this time was that I love to learn, and I have a very strong conviction in this path. Everything that I have tried, even if it takes many years, it works. I've never been disappointed with what I've really tackled with this path. And there is nothing else I can say in this life that has that same result. And then also having the conviction of my teacher, who didn't give up on me when my mind was a mess. And when I was not wanting to listen to anything. So because of that, I didn't leave, and I stuck through everything that was happening internally. Third one, in all actions, I will examine my mind, and the moment a disturbing attitude arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. So this was really a turning point for my practice because we were learning the thought training teachings, learning the antidotes, and I was starting to apply them. Along with that, to actually apply, I had to develop some mindfulness about actually what my mind was doing, and then the introspective awareness to see if I was getting off track and afflicted or if I was, in a good place with my mind. And I started paying more attention to my inner world than my outer world, which also was very helpful. And then the next thing that I figured out with teachings and help and reading was that the moment that I identify an affliction, to turn it immediately. I can remember back before I even came here, I would have an afflicted mind about something. I could keep that in my mind running for a couple days and just feel miserable, of course, So there's so much freedom when we start practicing this path, but of course it takes time. And when I first came here, I thought, quick, let's get this done, get it over with, and let me, figure out enlightenment really fast. That's not happening. Yeah. And then the fourth one, whenever I meet a person of bad nature who is overwhelmed by negative energy and intense suffering, I will hold such a rare one dear as if I had found a precious treasure. Now, this one may have been the most painful, I think, for me. And yet here I am, happy as a clam, so it's good. So the conflict that I run up against in the community taught me fortitude. And I got to see my anger and then how to work with it. Often I would go and complain to Venerable Chodron, and she would ask me to look at my own mind and not at the other person's actions. That is not what I wanted to hear. And if she had a penny for every time she told me that, she would have a lot of money. Our Buddha hall would be built a long time ago. It would be all good. So it took a long time for that to get into my mind. But I did slowly start turning it. And a big piece that helped with that was starting to bring some compassion to myself. And I would say things like, my mind would go off in that way, blaming someone else. And I would say, okay, Jigme, you want to create misery for yourself today, huh? And whenever I would say that, it was like, oh, no. And then I could, move it, drop it, turn it around. So I started turning this inappropriate attention that I would have and seeing one trait of a person, and that was all, instead of seeing the full person and all of their wonderful qualities. And so once I started doing that, then my mind calmed down and I started examining my expectations of others. Because anytime I would get a little more clear about what I was doing, what my mind was doing, then there was a little more space in the mind and I could start turning my mind to a more positive, virtuous direction. And so then looking back on the conflicts that I had with people in the years, I see now how precious they were. At the time, not so much, but now very much so. I understand my anger very much better now, and I also understand that the person was in a lot of suffering. And so now I'm starting to move my mind more to equanimity and more to this idea that even though I've heard it a million times, it's really coming in now. Everybody wants happiness. No one wants to suffer. Everybody wants happiness. No one wants to suffer. And I really get that now, and I can see that now internally and also when I look around, which in the past it was just words, again, intellectual, but it didn't really seep in. Then the next thing that happened during this time with this experience here was we started learning about nonviolent communication. And that also was so helpful. We've practiced it for quite a while. I'm still practicing it, and many of us are, because it's really hard to turn our usual patterns of speech and thinking. But it's a much gentler community. When somebody is having a difficult time here, we give them the space they need. We don't criticize them and get angry. We just hold them with care. And that is so healing and so helpful. So I have a lot of gratitude for this path. It's infallible. To me, it's infallible. If you practice it, you will transform. Everybody that has come here, this has been the case. Of course, different speeds for everybody, but that's the usual. So let's keep practicing.